It's our 26th week, I think, studying the 29th word. Um, as a reminder, 29th word is about those immortality of spirit and resurrection. We are aim, and this has been mostly more about the resurrection aspect, and we've been looking at different proofs for the necessity of prayer. So last week we read some parts that were different verses in the Quran, and then how we can do a reading of them in a way that can help us actually confirm the reality of those verses. So one thing that I had noted on the methodology aspect was what we're trying to learn with our study here is not just about this particular topic, but generally learning the how and the methods for when we're reading the Quran, when we're reading our Creator's speech, um, what's the best way to read it, understand it, and how can we actually confirm what we're reading? So Imam Nursi obviously gives us this as an example. He gives us certain verses, he lists them, and then he gives us a reading of them that really brings that verse into our life and can kind of guide us through, okay, I'm reading this verse and I can actually confirm it in my own life. So from last week, my notes are, if you guys remember, we kind of talked about the stage by stage creation of the human being, and then the sort of risk sustenance aspect of that, the intricacies of every kind of function and mechanism and everything that's really just going on without most of it without us knowing or even understanding. And then what those uh, mechanisms, what that function communicates to us. So for my notes, what I wrote and what really stood up for me was that there is no conscious way of living without being in connection with the melekut aspect, which has been kind of our goal with the 29th word. So when we say, melekut, we're trying to see if we can make a connection or bond with the world that's beyond the physical, because there's meaning that is being conveyed to me, and I am made to feel things, and these are all speaking to me in some sense. So how can I kind of be in touch with this aspect of creation? That's my goal. And why this matter, especially belief in angels, right? We keep emphasizing the point that it's um, one of the principles of faith, as we call it, right? So, in one of our first talking about, it's usually in the Quran, at least, it comes after belief in God. So it looks quite important. And for me, personally, it never felt that present in my life. So our study here is to see, why is belief in angels such an important part of faith, and learn that and believe in it in a way that's not just I'm not rejecting it, right? So Dr. Yamina keeps reminding us belief isn't lack of rejection. It has to be something active. So it's not just like, yeah, angels probably exist or they exist. It has to be something more than that. So without this belief in angels or this melekut aspect of creation, my belief in God is incomplete, right? Because my creator is communicating with me through this um, dimension of reality, dimension of existence. Um, the other things that I wanted to remind us from last week was this section that we read felt a bit, I don't want to say scientific, but it felt like um, the way maybe I was reflecting on it was, um, wow, the body is amazing. We had these different parts of it, like um, how the sustenance comes into the body and is cooked in 4 different kitchens, undergoes different transformations, it's filtered. So it was a little maybe misleading. And one thing that Dr. Yamina reminded us was how much information we have um, doesn't determine our iman or our faith. So here, the information about digestion or your body or biology or ecology isn't going to equal faith, isn't going to give you a stronger faith, etc., by itself, but it's about how we process the information that we have, that it can actually help us strengthen our iman. So if it takes us to the melekut aspect of creation, and if it takes us to the beautiful names, then that information is beneficial for us and it can strengthen our faith. But if it's just left as like a fun fact that we know, or we read, or we studied, or we're experts on, it's not by itself going to really help us. So as we keep reading, I think that's something that we should keep in mind, because I think we all get really excited about sharing things, like me first, I think, because when I'm reading, I'm just like, oh, this is amazing, like, and there's all these fun things that and amazing things that are going on in our bodies, in our world around us that we can observe and witness. But just being a witness to those things by itself isn't enough. So I need to process that information in a way that takes me to the beautiful, takes me to the Melekut aspect of creation. Yes, Dr. Babak, please.
Thank you, Nabano, for this beautiful reminder. I think we need as many times a reminder every halakha, to open with this reminder that what we're studying is to help us see and really not like experience this transformation from mundane things that we previously consider mundane in our day, and the chores, the cleaning, the cooking, the into pure magical presence. And I don't know about y'all, but I personally have never had a teacher or anybody that focuses on this study, which is what makes Receiving Road and the study of Imam Nursi so special, because it's word after word after word, paragraph after paragraph, chapter after chapter, which he calls the words, to focus on this, using his lived experience to transform mundane into really, you're witnessing a magical presence with us. So may we, Bismillah, renew our intention to take that very seriously, because it's not something that can be easily taught, which is why most people don't teach it. It's very easy to teach about patience and trust and all of these concepts. But for me, and I know Dr. Ali says this plenty of times, like and Dr. Yamina emphasizes it plenty of times, we people take Iman for granted. You can't talk about trust and patience and all of these things when we're not even witnessing the hidden hand operating in your life. Then how are you even conscious of this being? So thank you, Nathan.
Thank you, Sarah. That was lovely. I think one thing I'll add is when we say it's transforming the mundane, what we mean is it's revealing the reality, right? Because it's not actually mundane, but we get used to it, and because we are not looking at it the way we're supposed to, we see things as mundane. But once we actually see them for how they are, then we can be in that state of awe or wonder that we're really trying to cultivate, inshallah. Okay, so we left off here and I'll start reading. As always, feel free to write any questions in the chat, raise your hand, ask questions, give comments, etc. Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad. We often see in this world that tyrannical, sinful, and cruel men pass their lives in great ease and comfort, while the oppressed, upright, and religious live under great difficulties and in degradation. Then death comes and makes the two equal. If this equality had no end and was not finite, an injustice would be apparent. However, since divine wisdom and justice are free of all inequity, as is established by the testimony of the universe, they self-evidently require a final assembly where the former will be punished and the latter receive their reward. Then disorderly, wretched men may receive punishment and reward in conformity with their potentialities, be the means of absolute justice, manifest dominical wisdom, and be the elder brother of all the beings in the world. We had read some verses at the beginning of this section, and I forgot to read this part. The following is a summary of the judicial comparison indicated by verses like the third one above, nor is your sustainer ever unjust to his servants. Okay, so just keep that in mind as we keep reading. For sure, the realm of this world does not allow for the blossoming of man's limitless potentialities contained within his spirit. This means he will be sent to another world. Man's essence is indeed mighty, so he's designated for eternity. His nature is exalted, so his crimes are great. He does not resemble other beings. His order is important too. He cannot live without order. He cannot live without meaning. He cannot be made in vain. He cannot to absolute extinction. He cannot escape to pure non-existence. Hell has opened its mouth, waits him, and paradise has opened its graceful embrace and watches him. Since the third truth of the 10th word has demonstrated these two examples most beautifully, we shall cut the discussion short here. Just before I started preparing for today's session, I was talking to my brother, he's 14, and he was asking me if I would still pray 5 times a day if I knew that after I died, I was just going to become nothing. So I was saying to him, I don't think I would, because I would be very angry with a God or creator who would give me this life and then would just make me nothing. Like, it just wouldn't make sense to me. So I really like how these two paragraphs kind of touch on that. And I think right now, especially with the current state of world affairs, we can really feel this necessity for the new creation. By way of example, you may make analogies and study other verses from the Quran similar to the two above, which contain many subtle and rational proof. Thus, these 10 sources and central points form a decisive proof and certain supposition. And just as the sound hypothesis and powerful proof are decisive evidence for the cause and necessity of the resurrection and day of judgment, so, as is clearly proved in the 10th word, do most of the most beautiful names, like all wise, all compassionate, preserver, and all just, require the coming of the last day and resurrection, and the existence of everlasting bliss. They point clearly to the realization of eternal happiness. That is to say, the matters necessitating the resurrection of the dead and the day of judgment are so powerful that they leave no room at all for any doubt or uncertainty. Um, Before we move on to the third fundamental point, I think, one thing that we've been really um, coming back and just repeating over and over again is, okay, the beautiful names, this idea of justice, and then if we actually see the manifestation of these names, because they really impact how we read the world around us. Last week in my notes, I had written, if I perceive what's happening as chaotic, then I'm not grounded in the Medikut aspect of creation. And I remember when we first started reading the second aim, especially, I was thinking, in some parts, Imam Nursi writes about how uh, the universe is in harmony and everything's working together and everything is really like well ordered and justly measured and this and that. And he is seeing and witnessing the manifestations of these names, the all wise, all compassionate, the preserver, the all just. And as he looks at the world, he actually sees this. But for me, that was really hard. And I think it's still hard because it's something that I have to keep practicing. But at least with this practice, um, I've learned maybe how I focus a little bit more and see like where I need to stop, where I need to um, stay, in which feelings I need to like take a break or actually ground myself in so that I can, when I look around and I'm looking at the world, I'm looking at the universe, I'm seeing this is happening because the all wise one is in charge and everything is working together because it's the manifestation of his compassion. So once I make that my go-to way of seeing the world, this next part comes a bit easier. So, because here, if we look at this last paragraph again, the most beautiful names require the coming of the last day and resurrection and the existence of everlasting bliss. They point clearly to the realization of eternal happiness. Another thing that we've been talking about is when we feel things, they're not our feelings. So when I am not pleased with something, when I'm made to feel angry, unhappy, they're not my own feelings. I'm not creating them myself. I'm not controlling them. So they're also carrying a message to me. And I can either, actually stop and read that message, or I can kind of wallow and not understand what's going on. So here I think for this necessity of the resurrection of the dead, this last point he has made is, look, when we look at it on the surface, there are a bunch of sinful, cruel, terrible people, and they seem to live great lives. And there are a bunch of oppressed religious people who live in great difficulty and who die in terrible circumstances. And death comes and they both die. If that was the end, it would be very unjust and we would be very unhappy. So there's two things, right? We have this sense of injustice and unease, and he's saying, okay, these feelings are not yours. They're there for a purpose. They're like signaling you to something, right? Someone is giving you this feeling of justice, of compassion, of um, wisdom. Like uh, you don't want things to be unfair. And then he's saying, where do you see fairness? Where do you see wisdom? Can you actually witness it anywhere? And who can actually um, create this wisdom, this compassionate, just uh, world or reality that you're craving for? So it's all kind of like this um, signaling uh, system. So um, I really like that. I'll open up the floor if anyone would like to say anything. And if not, Dr. Yamina, would you like to add anything before we move on to the third fundamental point?
Assalamu alaikum. Let's
Well,
listen to anyone else first, inshallah.
I can ask a question. So, what we've read so far, especially with this proof for resurrection, like, does it make sense to you guys? And have you had a chance to witness any of this in your own life, like since we've started studying this? And would you like to share any reflections?
Nurbanu, could you repeat the question? I missed the word.
I was saying if this proof for resurrection, like the necessity of resurrection and the realization of it makes sense. And if since we've started studying this part, you've had a chance to like witness any of these truths or reflections in your own life, or if you'd like to share any comments that you've had that are related to the reading.
I can share a personal experience that just came to me right now. Um, so I have a neighbor whose brother passed away. They actually both passed away at the same time, and then he was resuscitated and his brother was not. And um, next month will be 1 year, and today's makes 11 months of the passing. So I happened to see him in passing, and there was just like a lot of this life is not fair. I just don't understand. Like, and this whole thing of like, and so as was his fiance as well, really struggling with like, um, you know, this is not right, this is not fair, like the good die young and all of these concepts. And now that I'm reading this, So my first thought that came to me yesterday was like, well, the fact that you feel like it's not fair shows that there's something inside that knows fairness. And so at the end of the conversation, he actually said it himself. He said, we're all going back to God. So nothing is lost. So then this whole concept of the beautiful names, he says, most of the beautiful names require the coming of the last day and resurrection. Require, like, so when he's saying that's not fair, it's the fair one speaking. It's like there's a fair one that needs fairness. And so that's proof that fairness, real fairness, real judgment, like real truth must exist. And then there was this whole question. He was like, who do I blame? Who to blame for what happened? And it's like a trap. Like, who do you blame? But there's a need to judge, and someone needs to be blamed. So, a reflection of it today, it's like, these are the most beautiful names speaking. And what he says, it requires like that feeling that came to him, which is, the something inside saying the most fair, right? Like you said, like the echo of eternity, 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 justice, justice, justice. Really, I want to say all of the beautiful names are constantly chanting inside somehow. It's just a matter of like a radio station, what frequency are you aligned with, that allows you to hear it. But yeah, that's what comes to me. Requires the coming of the last day and resurrection, the existence of everlasting bliss. He's so down, like, and so I don't say anything because I was there. I mean, I know what that feels like. So I just don't say anything to take him out of wherever he is because it's a process. But they point clearly to the realization of eternal happiness. Inshallah, that could be an easy thing to swallow. Like the fact that you think life is so unfair. And I think about Gaza, everybody's saying it. How could this be going on for this long? How could this be right? Everything we do, so many people are losing hope now because we're watching locals that have been mashallah, like they've been Allah is using them to be the light towers, kind of the journalists. And now when we start to see them lose hope, I see a lot of people now losing hope. Well, losing hope also points to like, how could this still be happening? Why is there no But because we're so unaware that it's like, who's speaking? Who is speaking? It's this eternal proof. And so the eternal place is speaking. And when we become, like Dr. Yamina says, like when we live from the ruah, like when this place becomes more and more familiar, like Rabban was saying, we become more and more acquainted with this training. We are seeing, the angelic side chanting the most beautiful names, and you're feeling yourself screaming for eternity and all these different things. And you're feeling this perfection, like the four kitchens and all these, like there's these noble workers right here with me. It's not like something far-fetched in outer space, like that we're supposed to believe in. These are things right now chanting very loud inside of me, but I'm often so caught up in speeding through life that I'm not pausing enough to witness and become aware that who's really talking is the ruh knows the beautiful place. It's familiar with the beautiful place. Its feet are there, like it's lit, it's in, yeah. That's
Or did you get cut off?
Nope, I said that's all. I mean, that's all that comes to. And so
Thank
Dr.
you.
Nina, you want to share, if anybody else would like to add anything or share any questions, otherwise, Dr.
Assalamu alaikum. So the last point about the injustice that you both, Nurbanu and Sarah, shared, he says, if there were no hereafter, if there is nothing more than this life, if this death is the end, then it makes sense that it feels unfair and unjust. However, it makes sense at first because we're taking lots of things for granted. However, if truly death is the end, if truly there is nothing more than this world, meaning there is nothing more than this transient, passing, flowing world, the whole delusion of ghafla, of mindlessness, of being stuck in the worldly aspect. It means the aspect of things that is transient, the aspect of things that does not look to the reality. It means the aspect that looks to our misperception when we are unaware. We'll find out that we will start living in contradiction, because on one hand, we're saying it's unfair because we're assuming that there is nothing else, nothing else after death, and nothing else right here and now, no meaning in what's going on, no purpose. The contradiction is, if there is nothing else, if there is only the now, this flowing thing, then everything becomes meaningless, because there is no meaning, no purpose, nothing. So our asking questions becomes meaningless. Our feeling right or wrong, just or unjust, seeking justice, wanting justice for others or for ourselves, compassion, love, anything beautiful becomes meaningless. And that's the biggest evidence that it doesn't make sense. There must be something else. And as he said before that, human beings cannot live without meaning, without order, without purpose. Nothing can be made in vain, because if there is no meaning, if there is no purpose, lasting meaning that transcends death, then everything will be in vain. And we cannot even comprehend what it means to be in vain, because all our emotions, thought, everything will become chaotic, and we will have no right to say or feel anything, which doesn't make sense. The point before here, for me, the important key word is, he's talking in the first paragraph. He says, then death comes and makes the two equals. If this equality had no end and was not finite, and injustice would be apparent. And then he says, since divine wisdom and justice are free of all iniquity, how do we know? As is established by the testimony of the universe. As is established by the testimony of the universe is the key to everything. The shahada of the universe is what makes us certain of these beautiful names of divine wisdom, divine justice, prevalent everywhere. Order, purpose, meaning, prevalent everywhere. Compassion, love, help, sustaining, providing, giving life, caring. All this is established by the testimony of the universe. So if you remember in the 33 words, especially, and also in the 11th word, the testimony of the universe, when we make Shahada, Shahada is very important. It's the first pillar of Islam. So it's the pillar to all the pillars are looking to it. It's a pillar that does not seem to be related to action. It is Shahada, eyewitness, but it is an action, inner and outer. It is actually, it's the action that we are supposed to be doing all the time. So what do we witness? We make Shahada that there is no deity, nothing worth worshipping, nothing worth asking help from, nothing worth expecting anything from, except Allah. It means, and Allah, in order to know who God is, Allah, we have to make the Shahada of all the names of God. La ilaha illallah means there is no provider except him. Otherwise, anything that seems to be the source of provision will become our object of worship. So how do I witness that God is the provider? Because I learn from the Quran and the teachers of the Quran, starting with the Prophet ﷺ, to read the signs. Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. So I learned this Iqra, al-Quran. If we keep Quran as the word, Iqra will be Quranized. See how everything is reciting the names of God, is glorifying God, is making the creator, the sustainer known, is proclaiming the love, the compassion, the care, the justice, the beauty. And when we learn to read the signs, then as we start learning the language of the creation, we start witnessing, because now we are witnessing through hearing them and seeing them and being part of. We start witnessing together with them. We start reflecting that, or we can say confirming, testifying to the truth of what we are living, experiencing, seeing, observing, living. And then all this starts making sense, because now the more we live in this way, the more we learn the language of the creation, the more they are not dead, meaningless things anymore. Now they are malakuti. I don't want to say angels, because they are not exactly the angels, but they pertain to the angelic part. And the more we live that way, the more what is involved within me when I am doing that is the ruh. The ruh is what communicates with the angels. And the ruh is what is taught the beautiful names of God. So we recognize the beautiful names of God. So we start seeing wherever you turn, there is the face of God, the countenance of God. We will see everything reminding us of God, reminding us of Akhirah. So we're living here and now with that awareness. And so, as Sarah was saying in the beginning, even seemingly mundane tasks become miracles. They become means of glorifying God, of reminding us who we are, what we are doing here. They become means for us to fulfill the purpose of our creation, to grow our that potential, so that we become the Khalifa, the representative of God here on earth, so that we are preparing for eternal life in Akhirah, inshallah, in Jannah. So you see, this is the Ruh, the angels, living in the presence of God, having Iman in the unseen, certainty of the unseen. Fulfilling the purpose of our creation, and therefore finding that itmi'nan and that joy that we are longing for, that happiness, that fulfillment, that everyone is busy 24/7, investing everything to try to find that fulfillment. And here we are told this is the way to find fulfillment. And as I always say, because this is what I tell myself too, can you just try once? Because when we do not take the word of our Creator, the word of God, seriously, then we try to compensate without realizing, because we think we are looking for that fulfillment in the worldly. Here, worldly, in the mundane, the worldly, it means the transient aspect of things that does not look to the meaning. It's like you have writing, but for me it's just paper and ink, and I throw it away. Or I may decorate the house everywhere with paper and ink, but I don't know how to read them. I'm not aware that they are actually messages, very important messages. And I try to collect them because I feel like they look pretty. But looking pretty doesn't really speak to that need for eternity. Eternity means the eternity of life, the eternity of love, the eternity of beauty. You crave, you need beauty, but you want it to be lasting. So we bury ourselves in worldly activities. What makes them worldly is our attitude, our perception or misperception, not what we are doing. Could be what we are doing could change as well. And that's why if we feel that we don't have enough time to study the Quran seriously and to apply what we are doing, what we learn, then it means we seriously need to make more time, because we're wasting time, our time trying to find something without map, without error, blindly in the darkness. And we are told in the Quran, here is the map, here how you find what you are looking for. So just I'm making this reminding ourselves of this so that we know that there is no dichotomy, like there is the worldly, our life, we need to live our life, and there is the religious things that I need to do in order to gain paradise. There is no organic connection between the two. That's the what we learn all the time. That's what Sarah was talking about and Nurbanu at the very beginning. What we are learning here is not information. It's knowing how to read the signs, how to read the signs of the Quran as map to the signs in the creation. As interpreter, as Imam Nursi rahimahullah says, as an interpreter, as translator to the languages of the creation, so that we understand that languages of rahmah, of the beautiful names, and we start glorifying together with them, making tasbih together with them. It's like living in darkness, and suddenly you find that there is light going from chaos to not only order, but beautiful order, from total no food, nothing to eat, to beautiful banquets. The difference is so huge. So it's teaching, what the Quran is teaching us is how to interact with the world as it is for the purpose of its creation that pertains to the purpose of our creation. To learn to practice and perform the Shahada so that we can proclaim the names of God. What does it mean to proclaim just proclaiming for the sake of proclaiming? No, proclaiming the names of God means reminding ourselves that all our needs are being taken care of. I need justice, I need eternity, I need not only myself, my safety and my well-being, but everyone else. You start with the ones you know, and then the human nature is that you don't want anyone to be to not be good, because it disturbs us. That's how we're created. And lo and behold, we find that feeling is not from me. It is given to me in order to find the source of that compassion, that love, that care, so all my needs are being taken care of. That's what it means to proclaim the Shahada, to glorify God, make tasbih. I do not need to prostrate or bow down to anything or anyone except God, my creator, the creator of everything, the sustainer. Look at the dignity, look at the freedom that it gives us, the freedom from worshiping anything or anyone. So this is the way to fulfill our needs, to find the source where all our needs are being taken care of, and to find meaning and purpose in everything. And so all hardships, all chaotic kind of situations, it doesn't mean that we will understand the wisdom in everything. We may, to the extent that it is revealed unto us, but at least we trust, we surrender, because we surrender. Surrender means I am aware of my limitation. I do not understand. I cannot understand because I am a limited being. I don't know what will happen in 5 minutes. I don't know what's going on behind the wall in my own house, let alone somewhere else. I have no power, no control, so I surrender, but I surrender to someone that I know, I love, I trust, the one who sustains my breathing, my life here and now, the one who sustains all life here and now and has the power and the love and compassion and purpose. There is meaning in everything. Just because I don't know does not mean it is not there. And everything It's like we're seeing a small part, a tiny, actually, part of a picture. And I want to say it's good or bad, according to what? So surrender is surrendering to my reality, understanding who I am. So from one perspective in the beginning is we are this limited being. It feels like we're insignificant. But when we make peace with that reality, we find the other side of our reality, which is we are created beings. We are conscious mirrors of the divine, of God, which is something any career, anything in this world cannot, how do you say, cannot reach. It's something we are created with a potential, with a value that is so precious, with a potential that is so precious. And we are here to uncover that potential and actualize it, realize it, live by it and through it. So that's how our the purpose of our life is fulfilled, and the purpose of the creation is fulfilled, inshallah. So that's why at the beginning, when Nurbanu and Sarah said, we're learning how to read the names, how to read the signs, the ayat, how to learn the language of the beautiful names of God, how to glorify by means of the creation. This is active shahada. When we learn this, then it is up to us to apply it and practice it and live by it. And this is the only way to live with the Quran. Otherwise, we can learn morals, like Sarah was saying, trust each other. How can I trust if I don't have a surrender, total surrender to God? If I can't trust God, my creator, if I can't, how can I trust others? What does it mean? Or charity. Yes, charity in the name of God. Bismillah. But I don't know how to act in the name of God. I act in my name and then say, God, please, you see, I am sacrificing my whatever I am sharing. And so please make sure you give me something in return in the hereafter. And the Qudsi Hadith says, you gave this much? Okay, here you are. We give you what you gave. They can give us what we gave thousands, millions of times. It is still finite. But when we act in the name of God, the acting is, the giving becomes an act of worship, an act of knowing God, an act of surrender, because it's not in my name. This is what we are learning. So it's not, so I don't deny the resurrection or akhirah. So why should I reflect, study this and reflect and take it seriously and apply it in my life? Because not denying is not the same as believing. And especially when it comes to akhirah, it's more than believing. We need to have that certainty. And that certainty is only when we witness the testimony of the universe here and now, inshallah. And then wherever we look, they will, even if I forget, they remind. Everything that's going on in the world reminds me of God, reminds me of akhirah. They are all testifying. They are all teaching me how to glorify God at different levels from different perspectives all the time. So that was the two. One is, as is established by the testimony of the universe, we need to learn to testify the testimony of the universe. And the second one is the beautiful names. Once we witness the beautiful names, then even in an event, something is going on, I can't see that name, but I'm witnessing it everywhere. I have no doubt about it. So I trust, I surrender that there is justice because God is just in everything he does. So
Dr. Yamina, I just want to add something if I can.
I'm done, so please go ahead.
I just feel like a lot of connections happening that are really just filling my heart, and I wanted to share them. So as you were speaking, I was just absorbing and seeing the things that disturb me, and looking at them through, yani, receiving everything that you were saying. So yes, we can't trust anybody if you don't even see his, yani, we don't have that solid relationship. And a solid relationship is two strong words put together. It means there has to be many interactions that are consistent in how this being demonstrates or shows up, we say, demonstrates itself to you. So then it reminds me of Gaza, because still when I see things, I find the cringing and I just turn it off, and I'm like, I almost like I just have to just completely shut it out for a moment, because it really, I feel my body immediately receive intense hate and dislike, and I just don't have the space to think about it or reflect on it, because there's little humans and food and drinks and diapers and this and that. So now in this moment of this ayah, nor is your وَمَا رَبُّكَ ظَلَّامًا do you know the Arabic? Nor is your sustainer ever unjust.
وَمَا رَبُّكَ بِظَلَّامٍ لِلْعَبِيدِ.
That's that's a statement, matter of fact, and it's like, can you prove this in your lived experience? He's telling us this is how he operates. Now go back in your life and see, is it true? So as you're speaking about, we have to see his justice, because I love the first sentence now. If we go back, we often see in this world. So I love that he starts with the ayah, and the first thing under the ayah is, so nor your sustainer is never unjust. Your sustainer is never unjust to his servants. And we often see in this world that the sinful, tyrannical, cruel people live their lives in great ease and comfort, and the oppressed are living under great difficulty and degradation. Yes, we see this 100%. So then I paused with that as you were speaking, because I said, SubhanAllah, like, that's true. We often see this. It's so often that the worst people, like, why do they get 80 something years of life, Yani? This is what my neighbor was saying yesterday. He should have got 30. The way he's acting, these disgusting humans. And my brother should have got, this is his point. But SubhanAllah, as you were speaking, Dr. Yamina, what came to me is like, what happens inside of me when I observe that often the tyrannical have great ease and comfort, and the oppressed righteous are completely degraded? What happens in me? This intense alarm starts shaking and vibrating so loud that vibration is actually shaking the entire globe right now. So who's shaking and trembling And why? Well, it's a great awakening, they're calling it, right? There's this incredible awakening of humanity. Okay. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? So instead of getting trapped in the this is so what this is so how could they be 9 months and they're still and it's even worse and da da da. And what happens inside of me is there's a literal earthquake screaming, and subhanallah, that this is the exact position. And he says, I'm not unjust. Go and see. I am awakening this in you with, and then the next sentence, divine wisdom.
Here it's important that
Mm.
we scream, that we stay with that feeling, that we truly, our whole body, everything within us is rejecting this injustice, this oppression, because we don't want to also be like taqlid. The Quran says, God is not unjust. There is no injustice. That's it. You should not feel anything. Then in that claim, there is no witnessing. How do I witness the justice if I don't live the need for justice, which in cases of injustice, sometimes even small injustices, and when it's great, it's even, you feel it even more. You feel like really something in you is like a fire. Can you imagine how intense the need for justice is? So we need to stay with that injustice, but it's the middle way. We don't want to say, ignore that feeling, but we don't want to also stay in the hatred and the anger forever. The anger is there also for a purpose. That anger is something that will push us to at least pray with words, and there may be other ways of praying with action as well. Some people can write, some people can share, some people can do something. Some people will come together and pray together. But all that is because of the intensity of the need that we feel. No, this shouldn't be like this. We can fall into the trap of staying when we experience things horizontally. It's me who rejects this. And then even my dua, my prayer is, please, Allah, where are you? What are you doing? And it's like, is really God listening, or where is he? Is it really justice? Is it really rahmah? Where is the rahmah in this? But the other one, the witnesser, the conscious witnesser is, oh, I witness, I am aware that this is coming into me. This anger is not from me. Someone is telling me this is unacceptable. You don't be like this and you don't accept this. And if you can do something about it, go ahead and do it, but not in the same way, in the unjust way. So it
And
becomes, I don't ask those questions of where is God, where? No, because my realization also reminds me that God is just and loves justice. Allahu jamilun yuhibbul jamal. Allahu adilun yuhibbul adl. And say, Alhamdulillah, it makes me relax that I am powerless, but my Rabb is powerful. So my dua is not, please, please, please do this. I remember myself praying like this. And now I realize that that's not a prayer with trust, but Alhamdulillah that you are in charge. And if I can do anything, in any case, even if I'm doing something, it is only to acknowledge that you are in charge. فَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ حَافِظًا وَهُوَ أَرْحَمُ الرَّاحِمِينَ. They are just like every cell of my body is under your protection. I put everything under your protection. They are under your protection. I need to remind myself that everyone is under your protection, inshallah.
And yes, and it reminds me that like to the intensity of that feeling, like you were saying, without it, there wouldn't be something so strong inside of me necessitating hellfire. There wouldn't, yani, imagine if everything was peaceful and there was no severe oppression, and all of a sudden we're hearing of this boiling, burning, this very descriptive, and Nursi says hell has opened its mouth and it's raging and it's yani, to the level of that, yani, subhanallah, that he makes my insides boil. Inside, I feel boiling. And many of us do, but we get stuck in that, not realizing, yani, because we're not conscious, we're not looking at it, it's consuming us. So the witnessing factor is completely gone now because I'm letting myself get consumed in the belly of the whale. Nurbanu's belly of the whale, she loves the belly of the whale. Versus, look at how he says it. Like, yes, this is what we often see, and now let's be aware that this is how we actually can you channel that fury, that enragement. And I love what you said, Dr. Yamina, like, yes, don't try to like spiritually bypass, they call it in like therapy. Don't spiritually bypass and just say, trust God, be patient, because that's what all the scholars are saying. Yes, look at use the stories, go back to the stories, which is helpful. Back to the stories, yes. And we still feel boiling and rage. And the people that are listening to all these lectures, they come, and I'm in discussion, they still are severely struggling. So there has to be a more organic way, like Dr. Yamina was saying, to take our lived experience and with certainty feel tasdeeq, confirming this is the eternal speaking now. This is the proof of the hellfire raging. Without this, imagine if everything was happy-go-lucky here on earth. We'd be like, oh man, why is he so angry talking about hellfire like that? Raging, boiling, the people are getting thrown in. Like, this is kind of... So this awakening, this
Now we
trembling
say
inside my being.
Alhamdulillah that there is hell.
Yeah, people are really leaning into, at least the sisters in our groups that are speaking, and we spend time talking about this. Alhamdulillah that there's Jahannam because my insides are raging for it. Like, and he's saying, I'm not creating a paradise on earth for your joy. I'm not ever unjust to my servants. I am doing this deliberately to awaken in you the need to confirm the truth of what I'm telling you is best for your eternal life. Otherwise, somebody says, oh, here's paradise, here's hellfire, and here's a happy life. You really don't understand. It's very hard for us to understand, yani, without that stark contrast of, life is so unfair. Why? Because I need bliss. Okay, so bliss must exist. Look at that. Then he says, paradise has opened its graceful embrace. That's paradise is graceful. I didn't think about saying that to him yesterday. He's like, yo, I just miss my bro, and he's crying, and I remember being there, and I didn't know what to say. I had no idea. Like, and now here we go. Like, take everything, this severe pain that we, the humans are globally feeling because of what's being globally televised for the entire globe to witness on purpose with, like, remember, said divine wisdom and justice. People will say, are you kidding me? Like, how can you even think about divine wisdom and justice with what we're seeing? Because we're keeping it so horizontal. And yes, those of us who have a relationship with Rab, we can say, but there has to be wisdom. Yes. And aren't you feeling right now? Your feelings right now. And Dr. Yamina, mashallah, you beautifully model it and say it, alhamdulillah, for us to absorb and yani take that momentum and really move with it. Like to the extent of my shaking inside of whatever I'm feeling, to that extent, confirm with certainty, because what's being communicated to you is from the eternal world. The proof of judgment. Who do we blame? Who do we blame? Well, I got stuck in his language. I'm like, I don't know. Like, there's plenty of people that could probably get. I got so stuck in the horizontal. But if I would have just paused for a moment, this training is teaching us to say, who do we blame? Yes, there is a need to blame, isn't there? Alhamdulillah for Judgment Day. They sure will be blamed. Yep, that's true. Everything that you're saying is a need, is proof, is dalil, it's proof speaking right now. So I think that it's a subtle, and I wonder what the rest of you think. It's subtle, but there's a difference between someone telling you, yes, Yawm al-Qiyamah exists out there after we all die. What Dr. Yamina and Imam Nursi are pausing with right now, that feeling that you feel, what is that? That's the proof right there of Yawm al-Qiyamah. It's a breath away. Yani we act like it's there after. No, it's right here. You feel it right now, this need. So alhamdulillah that someone is communicating this to me, because without it, I would be, like Nurbanu said in the beginning, this life would be meaningless. And that's even more enraging. So I'm going to pause there.
It reminds me too of what we spoke about last week, where you were saying, Sarah, like, I know you and you know me. So if someone came to you and said something about me, or came to me and said something about you that I just don't think fits who you are, I pause and I'm like, that doesn't sound like Sarah. So I think here too, something that Dr. Yamina said was, even in times where I can't bear witness to that name at that moment or at that event, I have security, I have trust that it's there, right? So the emphasis was here, as is established by the testimony of the universe. So one example that I really like coming back to, and Nursi uses this example too, is I've been kind of sick, so I'm on like a very special diet for my health. And my mom has been, helping me like prepare these kind of burdensome meals. And they don't taste really good, but that's all I can eat right now. So, and she's like, usually she's the one doing it. And the taste is not good. Like, it's just because your mom makes it doesn't mean it tastes good, because the food itself, the material, like the ingredients are just not tasteful or tasty. But I have trust that, as my mom and as someone who loves me and who cares for me and who wants what's best for me, I need to eat this food, and it's coming from a source that is compassionate towards me. So I thought that, with this section, um, looking at and why what is so important, and it needs to be active and it needs to be every day, is because I need to actually establish this truth in my life. So once I do, in moments where it's not as apparent or it's not pleasant or it's filling me with all these different emotions, I have a baseline, right? So in those moments, I can say, right now I'm feeling angry and I don't like this. Like the food doesn't taste good. But the backdrop is this. My mom loves me and would I want to maliciously hurt me or make me eat something that's not good for me. Same way, I'm looking at the world and I see something and it's making me angry, unpleasant, whatever else. I'm saying, yes, right now, this is what I'm feeling, but I have established already and I have witnessed and I continue to witness parts of my life. My creator is always taking care of me, is always compassionate, is always just, is always orderly. Um, so even in these instances, I can surrender. I can submit to that reality, and I'm not like left in the air. So inshallah, may we increase in that kind of knowledge. We have 8 minutes. Also, Zebra, thank you very much. I can start reading the third fundamental point, and we can reread next week.
Can
If you
we,
guys would like to share any last minute, or we can end a bit earlier. What do you guys think?
I, I, I want to stay with everything that we're doing now before going to anything else. Um,
Okay.
so because this is so real and it's like easy to say, but it's so hard to practice when we start feeling these big feelings and then they swallow us and we're inside of them and we cannot see them outside of ourselves. Like we have, because what Dr. Yamina shares, we're so out of touch with this reality of who we are, the Ruach. We're so out of touch with this. And the only way to become in touch with it is to set the timer for a minimum of 20 minutes and pause and breathe and notice the miracles and just try to stay with it over time. So I really love, like in the second paragraph, what he's saying. Hell has opened its mouth and awaits him, and paradise has opened its graceful embrace and watches him. So the "and watches him" part really just made me pause. I know he refers us to the third truth of the 10th word there. So he cuts the discussion short, but I was like, wait, what? The watches him. There's something profound there. It's a lived, again, he's speaking from a lived experience of this and that I would love to have. So Dr. Eamon, I was wondering if anything about that, those two sentences about hell and paradise, if anything comes to you. And the end watches him part specifically. I like that.
You're muted, Dr. Amina, if you're speaking.
No, I was not. I think it's better to either individually people can go to the third root of the 10th word or leave it to next week, inshallah. It's already Maghrib here. Just entered.
Okay. We can link in the WhatsApp groups the third truth of the 10th word too, and you guys can read it and we can reflect on it. If that's the case, we can finish here, inshallah. I'll stop sharing. And stop the recording. I'll let me do the prayer. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواكم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة. إلى رسولنا سلام.